Music is going in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Smart Nonsense Podcast. I'm Henry. That's Dylan. This is the podcast where... Sorry, I was going to tell a joke. It fell through in my head. This is the podcast where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, and challenging norms. Dylan, where was I yesterday? What the heck? Where were you yesterday?
I really need to get in a habit of like having a little checklist. You know how I'm all about this checklist manifesto, link the book.
Yeah.
I need a checklist for the intro because we got to say what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. That's what we always miss.
Belky, I mean, all right.
I miss it every time.
Yeah. In case you haven't heard, we've been talking about it for a while, but Ring, this awesome, it used to be Doorbot, just this dope video doorbell that people thought weren't going to be big, got on Shark Tank, no deal, but then a couple years later sells to Amazon for $1 billion. The founder, Jamie Siminoff, he's on Guy Raz's How I Built This. We're going to be breaking down, reacting
now, that's
to that.
an intro. That was an intro.
All right, okay. So where were you? That's what you wanted to say?
Yeah. What's going on here?
I mean, where were you?
First, where was I? And why haven't I been able to listen to a new podcast for 3 days?
All right. Well, here's one problem that I realized, that I can hack the system in Buzzsprout and say that I published something in the past because I can change the dates. So I just got greedy. And now I'm publishing today, but saying I published on Friday just to hold with the daily stuff.
I knew something was up. I knew
Power
something
got to my head. But I just
change the date in like Spotify?
I think it changes.
I don't
everywhere.
like that.
It's fishy. And so I'm already hacking the system, taking advantage, but it's not good. So we're going to settle down. We're back to releasing daily. We got the episodes queued up. I'm just too lazy because I had a friend in town. Check out episode 19 and 20. And
where was I?
I don't know where you were. I mean,
I actually don't know. What's your motivation? You had a friend come on. I don't know anything about it. What was your motivation for doing that solo?
One, because, well, I since realized the tech will work better than I thought. So we can actually, because I just got another microphone. Not quite $400, but still a nice microphone. And man, there's so much stuff I got to figure out in person because it went well. It was awesome content and stuff. I need to figure out how to add more nonsense to this stuff, but quality-wise, smarts-wise, it was good. I just wanted to try shooting it entirely in person.
Yeah. Were you on the same camera?
There were some technical difficulties, so my camera stopped recording after 20 minutes. But the first 20, goddamn, we look good, let me tell you. So check that out. That's in the queue. I'll probably, by the time you hear this, it's already dropped. I guess the episode before this. Yeah. But I also wanted to do longer form because I'm tired of you saying I'm busy and running the minute we hit 32.
Let's be clear. I don't say I'm busy. I said I have to go. And those are two completely different things. Completely different things. I'm also going to come on here pretty soon. And probably once I get into my soundproof box and make sure that this is not a webcam, but actually an SLR camera running through the computer. I think that's a big deal. You should try and follow format, even if you plug in like your G7X.
Yeah, I really got to figure out because the G7, it's all right. Sorry if we're too technical here, but I just need a camera that can shoot for like an hour straight, but everything just shuts down at 2 gigabytes or whatever, which is around.
Canon Vixia, they make some. Okay, let's talk about Jamie Siminoff.
All right,
this is my second or third time listening.
At least me too. And you were the first one that brought this to my attention because I guess
because
you like how I built this.
We got some awesome confirmation bias going on. I'm new to how I built this. My girlfriend introduced me, and I've just been. So she introduced me, and I went through to see the episodes I wanted to add to my library, and they're just like smash hit after smash hit after really successful business. And I was like, holy crap, NPR. Hats off to you. I think Guy Raz is a pretty good moderator as well. So great podcast. This was just an episode for me that just spoke so much to who I am. I think when it really hit me, and I've brought this up before, is when Jamie realizes, and I want to then go back to the beginning, but when he realizes he wasn't an entrepreneur, he's an inventor. And I remember I was walking just around the block when I heard this, and I stopped in my tracks. I was like, what the heck? Maybe I've been
Yeah,
living a lie.
Henry's like, I'm an entrepreneur. Meanwhile, he's walking around the streets doing nothing. But he is just, maybe he's the tinker, just the guy that invents and invents. And I mean, we'll get into the story, but that's clearly just from day one messing around with RC cars. He just loved that whole messing around, tinkering stuff. But I do want to say, listen to that podcast. Like, I would love that you listen to us, but listen to that first because we're going to drop some spoilers here. There's a lot of goodies that you'll just discover, and it gets kind of emotional at certain parts.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was the other thing that hit me. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. So, like, who was Jamie? He was just. I'm just going to keep saying a lot like me in a lot of ways, but maybe I'm like Jamie in a lot of ways. There was just like all this tinkering and tinkering and tinkering. He talked about building RC cars, right, and models. And then what happens? He hears about Babson, right? What do you know about Babson? I don't know a whole lot about the place. I know like a couple people that went there.
I mean, it's close. It's one of those business entrepreneurship schools. Like,
focused?
Yeah. And one thing that's kind of cool about Jamie, the Ring founder's personality, is he's like, while people were hanging, I know him personally. Right. While people were hanging out, like playing video games downstairs, I'm talking to the dad, like, or the mom, or whoever's the breadwinner in the family. Like, how do I be successful? Just absorb. And so his friend who he used to drive to school, his dad's the wealthiest person in the town. He's like, where should I go? And he's like, oh, well, some of the smartest people I know went to Babson, or like most successful. And so, yeah, he goes there, and it's actually kind of funny. What's interesting to me is he was like a B and C student, like nothing impressive. But then he wants this one car, some Land Rover, and his dad's like, yeah, I'll get it for you if you get straight A's. So he, like, I don't know. Maybe he's just inherently smart and just lazy. He prefers to tinker. Like, I saw that a lot in school of like people just don't like the system of how education is. But in the meantime, like one of my good friends actually. So we have this detour right now.
Yes.
We have this in school senior project, which is like you got to do your portfolio thing. We talked about that before. I almost didn't graduate because I didn't do that. Well, the senior project, don't tell my school, but I didn't even do my own senior project. This is dangerous territory here. But basically this one friend of mine, I kind of knew SolidWorks, but I didn't know it well enough. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to make a music amplifier, but you don't need any tech. It's just like the way it's contoured will magnify the sound. Like it checks out. And I'm like, oh, you can hang it in the shower, whatever. I wrote this in my Stanford application too, and they thought I was smart. But meanwhile, I didn't do any of the SolidWorks. He did it all in like a day. I pretended his dad was my mentor. It was a whole mess. But like that kid that I'm talking about, the detours reconnecting.
Here we go.
He just tinkered all the time. Like he modded out his own car. Like he'd build like any sort of potato gun type things. One of the smartest engineers I know just couldn't do school. And I think that system really pushes people away. But clearly you can, like Jamie's now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So whatever. I think it's BS.
I know similar people. I feel like you have your school people and you have your like applied engineers, and they just don't work together. There's this cool quote. It's in a similar vein, the A students work for the B students. The B students work for the C students, I believe. And the D students own the buildings. I think I'm messing up the B to C, but basically that's like the order of operations. And I always thought that was really interesting. Because all these big people are dropouts and failures in quotes. D students, right? But they own the buildings. They start the businesses.
Well, very soon, maybe this week, we'll have Excellent Sheep breakdown. But it talks about that of like the successful people are scared to fail, whereas people that have already quote unquote failed in the past with getting a B or a C or a D or whatever, they're not afraid to take it.
That's how that works.
And reconnecting, coming all the way back to Jamie, bam, bam, bam. He had all these different ventures, like even in college, starting before that, but he had like these little TaskRabbit type businesses. I mean, I made a list.
Sorry, I just remembered it because I'm listening to you.
All right.
TaskRabbit. I want to bring up Task. The A students
across.
Work for the B students. The B students report to the C students. The executives.
Mm.
The D
And
students own the buildings.
fucked.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, they own the building. Okay.
Yeah, they
That's
own the
good.
buildings.
I'm glad.
Okay. Sorry.
So
I don't
yeah.
think I'd be able to go on with my night if I, and that's still probably wrong, but TaskRabbit.
So yeah, he's just been messing, like absolutely living the hustle of just, he has this little feedback loop of like, where's their need? Then he just hustles and tries to build a product or something that'll fit it. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, it's over a dozen different businesses.
The do anything in Boston for $15 an hour was super cool, right? So he would have people, whoever, come to him with a problem, and they'd pay Jamie $15 an hour, and he would pay college students $10 an hour to do it. Like, what a brilliant edge. I think we exercise a lot of that in some of the things we do, both with VAs. I do that with when hiring like associate wedding photographers. I got to stop playing with this case. I just thought that was really cool. And yeah, like you said, the need hustle loop, which I've talked about, is like, I have all these kind of income streams that it's a different kind of need. It's a personal need. When I have a need for, let's say, travel or whatever it is, or need for finances somewhere, then I hustle. And then I relax because that need was satisfied. Another need comes up, I hustle even harder. So it's kind of a cool loop in that sense. And I think
what I loved is Jamie mentions this in the podcast where, what is it, James Dyson? I think that's the founder of Dyson.
At the very end.
And he says how he's his mentor, even though Dyson doesn't have any idea that he's mentored this guy. But in the same way that Jamie is kind of like your mentor in a sense. But that's why I love these podcasts and just like the amount of information out there. Detour again. So today, we're busy with that friend Ice, and we were checking out the Vanderbilt's mansions in Newport, Rhode Island, because I'm from Rhode Island, whatever, do touristy things. But it's crazy. Like they're the first, I think they're like the first people to get to $100 million. Unbelievable summer home. But like most people weren't allowed to read books on Sundays or whatever they wanted. Like there was just so little information that they had, like, just like I wouldn't trade my life right now for being the richest person in the world, like whatever, 100 years ago. And it's mostly because of this just information. You can have mentors. Like if you didn't know the Vanderbilts personally, like good luck finding a library with like a good book on them. But now there's everything. Like we're reacting to a podcast. How stupid is that?
Right.
But this type of content exists.
And like our parents' generation, that's why networking was so important. Because to get any of the information of this like really specific stuff from Jamie's story, down to like his wife wanting to remortgage their house, you would have to. Sorry, spoiler. You would have to sit down with him at like lunch to talk about all this stuff. And now it's just open source on the internet. And like, to go a step further, there are people on YouTube, for instance, like the Casey Neistats of the world or whatever, that live like these completely transparent lives where we, the viewer, feel like we know everything about that person, and you've never met him before. I can't tell you how many people Casey Neistat has inspired and people would call their mentor. Like it's super cool.
I don't want to pretend that we're being a mentor to anyone, but it's funny because I was talking to Will, who was on the podcast last episode, I guess. And I was telling him a story of like how Ice and I have this competition of like, if I lose, I have to go to St. Louis where he is. And we already been there. Like we've seen everything in like 12 hours.
Done it all.
Either that or he comes on a vacation with us, the next one we go on, to any part of the world. And I was telling Will, I'm like, yeah, I'm down at 6'8" right now. He's like, yeah, dude, I know. You said it on the podcast. I'm like, get up.
Yeah.
Like,
I we, forget. You know, to have someone reaching out to MC who is on here that I didn't even know listened, it's like, I don't know. It's just super cool. So there's some phantom people still going and listening to episode 1. That's where all of our views are coming in.
300 plus. I'm like, what?
I get a report in my email every week, and it's just like episode 1 is growing and growing and growing. I don't know why.
I haven't listened to that since either. It could be terrible, but all right. So circling all the way back.
Take this into Edison Labs. I think that's when things get really interesting. Right?
I want to.
You set up a couple companies.
That is a little bit later on. what I want to
think
mention right before that, because he does start a lot of businesses and maybe some aren't worth it, but he's on this path, but it's completely like he's just slashing through the forest. Like people actually, he has the analogy because Guy Raz is like, oh, well, you were just following a plan of like trying new things. He's like, dude, I wasn't on a plan. I was a snowball crashing down the hill, just trying not to smash into something on the side and blow up. And so he has all this stuff like business plan, and he just threw out a number like $10,000.
my God.
Like it's super high. He just thought, oh, they wouldn't accept that, but then they're like, oh, we'll pay that. And he's like, shit. Did it, just bound it really well so it looked good, but it was trash inside. But everyone judges it.
I just love the amount of things that he couldn't or didn't think he could do, but he just said yes to and figured it out. That's super inspiring stuff, and put a crazy price tag on it.
Well, he was basically factoring in like, I don't actually like doing a 40-page business plan, and I've done it myself, and it sucks to do.
It sucks.
And so he just kept raising the price. He's like, all right, well, how about $15,000? And people just kept paying because it was in like the .com boom.
Right.
So it's just interesting. He found himself in Bulgaria, started voice over IP company. Then his partner flaked, and the partner knew all the technology. So he had to go to the library, get books, and learn it himself so he could continue the company. In the end, sells it, but can only pay back investors. Like that's a recurring trend.
That's what I thought was interesting. What he says about his fiduciary obligations. I don't think you see that in a lot of entrepreneurs.
Right.
Where he was really particular about making sure he made his investors' money back. I think a lot of entrepreneurs see it as well. I'm a 1 in 10 for that investor, and if I lose everything, then sorry, that's the business they're in. But I like that Jamie was so keen on getting his investors' money back at whatever cost.
Right. And I mean, investor dream right there. If you ever have money and can invest.
What about that cool point he made too, when it came to what you were saying about Bulgaria, where they were trying to shut him down? He was like, you can shut me down, or, you can loan me the extra, or whatever it was. Give me another 3 months, because if you shut me down now, you're never going to get your money back. But if you give me another 3 months, like I can probably figure it out. It's just super cool.
Well, I think that comes down to just trusting the people around. Like if they trust him that he really cares about getting the money back, they're not worried he's going to use that 3 months to just like take off and vanish. So I think that's awesome. But in the end, like he's sold all these businesses, but he really just breaks even. Like he's not living a lavish lifestyle, but he does enjoy the process. He's learning so much. And one thing I wanted to mention about this, along with like the snowball, he didn't have a plan. I just read the Kevin Kelly recommended book. Actually, we broke down Kevin Kelly
the graphic novel
ago. The graphic, yeah, like the cartoon. I don't know what you call them, but The Adventures of Johnny Bunko. And it talks about how there is no plan. Like it has 5 tenets. I won't spoil them, but one of them is there is no plan. And people come in and like when they're making these career decisions, they have two sort of decisions that they can make. That's a tough word for me. They can make one that's instrumental or fundamental. So instrumental is like, oh, it's instrumental to my future. It's like a stepping stone. I'm just doing it and I don't actually enjoy it. It's just like I need to do it. So for example, I'll go and invest in banking so that I can one day work in private equity. And then after that, I can have my own hedge fund, etc. But that often doesn't work out. Like don't go for that. You want fundamental, which is you're doing it for its inherent value. Like you're going to learn something whether or not it succeeds.
By the way, that was the rationale for the mathematics question that you make fun of me for asking Eyes. It was about the fundamentals, right? And he learns math not to get as a stepping stone to go somewhere else, but as like a true reason to understand the world.
If that's what I was trying to get
at. So it's fundamental, but continue.
Right. Well, now I won't.
Because I think a lot of us learn mathematics as an instrumental thing to get to the next AP.
Yeah, he actually enjoys that stuff.
That's
for
what
some
I was
weird,
trying to get
maybe
at.
because he's good at it, but not ping pong because I smashed him in ping pong. All right, so yeah, don't do things instrumental. Whatever. He just goes in without a plan. The one plan he starts to make is like create an awesome environment in my 2-car garage to set up this workshop, kind of like what Henry's doing right now.
Yeah, that was the other thing that stopped me in my tracks is I was making this move. I was coming up with the decision. Oops. Coming up with the decision to make this move into kind of a creator studio, like an innovation lab, and starting an innovation lab. I talked about it for a few months, and right as I was like getting ready to sign the lease, I listened to this thing. I realized I have a lot of commonalities with Jamie, and he was doing it in a more jerry-rigged way in his garage. He talks about. I think I'll have a like more set in stone space for this stuff. But yeah, so he starts this thing called Edison Labs in his garage, where he says he can just start tinkering with all of the notes he's written in his phone of ideas he's had to solve problems. And like I have that same list of problems in my phone, but Jamie actually did something about it. Anyway, so he goes to his garage. He starts Edison Labs and employs a couple college students to come and just help him tinker all day long. What I want to do and what I thought was so interesting is he raised money for the lab as an innovation lab and said, hey, investors, you invest in this and back this, and you get a little piece of everything that comes out. And that's something I want to do if I run into the need.
I didn't even think so. Those investors then got a piece of the Amazon sale
of Ring, yeah.
Oh,
probably.
I missed that point. That's cool.
Yeah. So innovation, his Einstein Labs was funded, right? And then he goes on. He was mad because, oh my gosh. So Doorbot comes about just by chance. It's a problem he had. It's funny because he like wasn't really working on it because he was busy working on the things he thought he was supposed to be working on. And then he was mad because he couldn't get Doorbot on Kickstarter. And I ran into the same problem. Kickstarter had a ton of like restrictions 5-10 years ago. So he creates this new website for crowdfunding hardware things. Christie Street. Ironically, the street Edison Labs was on, does that. And that was kind of the beginning of Doorbot.
Right. So he had all these ideas and like it's a complete crapshoot. And they talk about it later with like, wow, I'm dark, with success and like what percentage is luck or whatever. And he has this awesome analogy. Maybe I'll just say it now so I don't forget it. But
yeah, do it.
It's like success is this lottery, right? Everyone's just whatever. You have your ticket. This is your chance to strike it big with whatever idea you have. But you can increase your odds of winning if you get more tickets. So how do you get more tickets? Well, you just put in more hours in these cool business ideas. And that's the rationale for us making this habit of just like putting out content constantly. Like you just get a bunch of tickets and eventually
you have no idea.
Ring will take off. Like it's hard because he's had a ton of other ideas that, like, for example, his unsubscribe button before that existed on emails. Great idea, but he just couldn't figure out how to monetize it. And so you'll have a million of these ideas, but one of them is going to be the winner. You just don't know what. And so that's what happens with Christie Street. It's funny because they have TechCrunch. For those of you familiar in that space, it's like, I don't even know it completely. It's just like new companies, startup companies can release products and stuff there. I guess that's what it is.
Something like that.
They had the
but
same
now it's
version.
Like a magazine, like blog online.
Right.
But they have a big keynote thing.
It's a big deal for a startup. And so they have one version in Europe. Somehow he has a connection there. And he gets to go and he's like, Christie Street, well, it's this marketplace, but we need or it's this crowd funding marketplace. We need one product on there. And he's like, what product should it be? His wife says, oh, I like that Ring idea. Or no, actually the
Doorbot
person at the Doorbot at the time. I like this idea. Make that the one. And so he's trying to pitch Christie Street to all these people, but everyone just latches on to Doorbot. They're like, that shit is sick. Like,
right.
That.
Whatever happened to Christie Street? Did he say? I think it just kind of fizzled out because Doorbot was such a good idea.
Right. You're not going to
at the time. But that's like, attention. You don't know. And he wanted to put they had a tile plant kit thing. They almost put that on Christie Street for the presentation. It's like, you just don't know. So buying lottery tickets was an interesting analogy, right? And you're born with a different amount of lottery tickets. Everyone has their different chances and opportunities. But one thing you can do is keep buying lottery tickets in whatever respect.
Dude, massive. He got lottery tickets in bulk when he got this crazy chance to get on Shark Tank.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else. I don't mean if I'm
let's move on
too much
to Shark Tank.
But
the lunch.
Somehow he has this friend that is connected to one of the producers on Shark Tank, and it's like, oh, they're looking for these new tech products. And it's like, oh, dude, I have one. Shoots off an email. Within like 30 minutes, he gets a phone call.
I would love to see that email too, because when he said it, he was like, I sent the email at the table at lunch. And it was like, hey, I have this company called Doorbot. Friends said you're looking for pitches. Let me know. And he's driving home and he gets a call. I just feel like I think so long about sending an email like that. Did he really send off a one sentencer and then boom, that was it? Because that's super cool.
It's weird because I also I'm curious about your experiences with Shark Tank, but
yeah,
with like, I felt like it. I mean, this is at its peak. Like, I don't know, 2013. I think they released it, and that's when Shark Tank was blowing up. Like, I'm such a big fan of Shark Tank. I know you have your qualms, but completely changed the world with like what's possible. Whatever. He gets somehow easy access to it, and
who's creeping in here? Keep going.
Creeping.
He gets easy access from
somehow.
A friend of a friend is a producer.
Again, yeah, I'd love to see that email, but it seems like I don't know how it worked out so serendipitously, but it did.
I think, well, it's Hollywood, right? And what I found too is like, it's almost like reality TV at the end of it. Like the screening process is different. Like there are like casting calls, and there are obviously instances like this where he just knows someone and they can do him a favor. What did I want to say about that? Oh, the point though. So I went on this roller coaster. I used to love Shark Tank, right? I got very far in the application process. I was supposed to go on, or I was a finalist or something, and I kind of lost touch with the producers. Something didn't work out. But that has nothing to do with it. Then my emotions kind of soured about the show because it started getting really serious, and the show did. And I thought, like, I don't know, you've got Damon, John, like Damon does it a lot. Mark does it. Lori sometimes does it, where they're like, if you don't make a deal with me in the next 3 seconds, like I'm out. And to me, I was like, that's just not how these things work. Also, when you're going to raise money, it's not for like 30 or 40% of your company.
It's also, I mean, here's the thing.
I've come back around, by the way. I watch it now almost every night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember because we had our entrepreneurship class in college, serious class. We were pitching to actual investors. And one of the first recommendations is like, hey, anything you've seen on Shark Tank is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
If you come in and you say, oh, I'm looking for $300,000 for 10% equity. Like, no one does that. You agree on terms later. You just pitch the idea. It's at
a lunch. Like, this stuff happens over email, and it's like pretty informal. But on Shark Tank, it's obviously TV. I loved what he said about the fact that, though, it's a 12-minute commercial on ABC primetime.
Well, so here's what I love.
You can't put a value on that.
If you come back to, I guess, episode 19 with Ice, or whatever the one he mentions interviews, I think it's the first one. And he talks about like, hey, the hardest part is getting my foot in the door. But once it's there, I am fucking slamming that door open and just running through. And well, that's with job interviews with Ice. Mm-hmm. But here it's with Shark Tank. You have this 12-minute slot. You got your foot in the door. Now you just have to crush it. Like, you are getting the job. It's not even a question. And so I
love how seriously he took it. Yeah.
You want to go over the details, like how he, if you remember, how he prepared exactly? Like,
I should dig up my application video. I know it's trash. It's just me in my family room. It's stupid. But yeah, so he goes, and I think this speaks to who he is as an entrepreneur or an inventor, whatever you want to call him. He goes and watches every single episode of Shark Tank. He comes and prepares 300 questions that they could possibly ask him. By the way, I don't think Shark Tank is like real life, but I do think the questions they ask, the numbers they ask for, are really important for understanding your business. Those are legitimate. Just the intensity of the whole thing isn't. And he goes in, they don't have a working product, and he's like, okay, we'll pre-record something and kind of fake it. And Shark Tank's like, no, do a live demo. And he's like, okay, we'll do a fake live demo. And they're like, nope, you're going to do a live demo. So he has to do a live demo and gets it off. I actually just went back and watched the pitch. It's good. He's calm. He's collected. It's awesome. And then they do the thing, but they don't get a deal.
Well,
I missed. I
God
didn't get to watch the end.
damn
of
it! You watch on 3 times speed, so you're missing so many
What
details.
else?
About. All right, so first he comes in and they're like, he shoots his video, whatever he's in, but he has to make a set, right? Shark Tank, you see a set, it looks good,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
we don't
yeah.
give you a set, bro. You got to build it yourself.
See, that's before Shark Tank.
All right,
We
sorry,
missed it.
sorry if my question was wrong.
Ship sailed.
Whatever. He builds this set,
Yes.
$8,000, hires
$8,000.
someone professional in the
Hollywood.
industry in Hollywood,
Yeah.
and then prepares. He watched all the episodes 2-3 times over. What did he do 300 times? He prepared his he had 300 questions that they might
Yeah,
ask him.
I got that.
I
Yes.
know you got it,
Yes.
but you didn't say it.
Yes.
So
Yes,
this
I
is actually
did.
cool too.
Rewind the tapes. Rewind the tapes.
I edit it. I'm gonna edit it out. So just kidding. I don't edit these. So that's one thing too from my entrepreneurship class is have your reserve slides. If you ever pitch anything, have like whatever. I don't know. We'd have like A, B, and C. So all right, say you have 12 sides in your pitch. You want like for slide number 5, you want like 5A, B, C, D, C, like all the potential questions. You have a slide for that question that an investor might ask.
How do you skip over them?
You can finesse the technology. I'm not going to get into the details.
That's a good
basically,
idea.
you have a slide for any questions that might come up, and you can anticipate them. Here, Jamie anticipated 300 plus. So crazy preparation. Again, that's IE's strategy with interviews. Just you're going to crush it. But what was interesting was he comes, crushes the presentation and everything, but they don't bite.
Yeah.
I mean, he had Mr. Wonderful come in with kind of a shitty royalty / equity deal, but he had to walk away and say, shit, no, I can't do it.
There were so many times in this story too where, because he's even telling this, he's like, I probably should have taken the money from Kevin. They were so desperate. And then, they had like 2 months of burn left before they were just going to be in salt. Like that was it for Doorbot.
Burn is just like you're running out of money. Like it's
he had 2 months of money to make this because it was costing him so much money to develop. And that episode could have aired anytime from, I think, September to May of the following year. And if it was after October or November, then Doorbot's gone.
This is because it's a product you want for Christmas, like holiday sales.
My gosh,
you want it in November. That's the perfect time because that's when people are buying Christmas presents.
And it comes out, the episode airs just by chance, or by some act of luck, act of God, like November 1st, first week of November. And they hit it huge, right? In terms of, like you said, the timing for the holiday season, because it's a consumer electronic. Do a whole bunch of orders, right? Am I missing anything? And then
I think it was like 5,000 orders, at least. Just they had this.
They
like
had the long tail.
Yeah. Just immediately orders coming through, but then like
this is
hundreds
us with
of thousands.
episode 1 right now. It's
Sorry?
just this. This is us with episode 1 right now. People have somehow got this thing on TiVo, and episode 1 of this podcast just keeps getting played and played and played. But he was getting 100,000 views on Monday, and then people would record it, and then 100,000 views on Tuesday, and 100,000 views on Wednesday, and it was just like all the way up to Christmas Eve.
That was like that. I mean, I think it was millions of insane amount. They start shipping all of these at this point Doorbots, video doorbells, and they have thousands of them out there now. But this is the week leading up to Christmas, like when all the presents are going to be revealed and everyone's like using their stuff, etc. They realize there's a fatal flaw, and in the process of their tinkering and trying to update and create a better version of Doorbot, somehow they were writing the code or whatever, and it didn't get, I forget the term for it, but it didn't get written into.
No, it got the code for the Doorbot got put into the machine once when it left the factory, and there was a bug or something, or the server was bad, and people were getting them like, we can't see any video, and there's no way to do any kind of update over internet or over the air. And
right. So, for some reason, I think like normally you could, or this chip, for some reason, their manufacturer in China, it couldn't. It was out in the field. Like, picture this. You have your company, you just send out thousands of this product and you cannot change it. And so they're freaking out because this is their one chance. They just got off Shark Tank, thousands of sales, and now they're screwed. Like they're
Think
out of
about
money.
all these things that have gone wrong. It's like, right, you pass up the deal on Shark Tank. You have 2 months of money left. Oh, but it gets aired in November. So all these orders go out, but then none of the video works on them. I just like, that's entrepreneurship. It's like everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it does. And what determines your kind of ability as an entrepreneur, as an inventor in this case, is like what you decide to do, right? Do you just give up and walk away, or do you just keep plugging along because you believe in the thing?
At that point, too, I'm gonna have to make a note of this. But his wife was like, she is so bought in. Like, talk about a support network around you. You hinted at this, you foreshadowed, but his wife is like,
it's not a foreshadow if you explicitly say what happens.
All right, you revealed what happened.
Yeah,
his wife is like, honey, like they're literally out of money. Like they're gonna have to refund all these people.
Are you calling me
out.
honey?
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing with that, honey. Baby, Jamie, we can mortgage the house. And this is like, he's literally tearing up. And I was actually like, if you see someone crying or hear someone crying, it's like you stuck in his head. You can feel the emotions. Like this is his baby is one shot. Finally, something's really taking off. And his wife is just willing to risk it all there.
That's what's so important too about surrounding yourself with people that think like you, right? I have a lot of people that I can think of in that instance that would not do what she did. And he is where he is now because of that. Just that one act of kind of belief in him. Because he said like he was trying to hold his composure at work and in these pitches, and he was going home and crying alone.
And his wife too, he said this, his wife was like she was the breadwinner of the family because he wasn't making money with these endeavors. And kind of like right now, living at home, like you have that support network that is just kind of holding you afloat until you can, have your own craft and navigate. And so luckily there's this Christmas miracle. I don't understand the technology fully, but somehow a new server they got was able to fix the problem. And it was funny. They're like, oh, hey, if you might have had this one strange issue that a select few people had, meanwhile, everyone had this issue.
Right.
Here's the fix.
Yeah.
And so it all ends up working. And bam, the company just continues to grow from there.
There's a bit too, I don't really want to talk about it, but a bit at the end where they go into privacy of the thing, which is kind of a hot button issue, I think is really interesting to hear from him, kind of their take on why they think their way of working with law enforcement is good or better than the standard, which is police officers coming up to your door and asking you for information. But we're kind of out of time.
Yeah, we've been running real long lately. I think my talk with Will was
38 easy.
That's what I like though. When we get hyped up, time just is irrelevant. What I do want to say, a couple last interesting points. So they had, I think they were, so his big concern, like Doorbot, whatever, or now it's Ring, it's this company, but who's to stop like a Google or Amazon or someone from coming out, creating the same product? They have a much bigger budget to just blow them out of the water. And they raise money. Jamie's company raises money, Ring. And he's like, hey, I don't want to just wither away. Like if we're going to do something, we're going to have an impact. We're going to have a giant crater in our place if we get beaten by one of these giants. And he ends up beating them out. And beating them out to the point where Amazon has the strategic investment and then later end up buying the company in. And it is pretty cool too, because he picked Amazon because they've been so great to past companies like Zappos or Audible or Twitch, like all these other companies that they bought out. They keep the founders, give them control. And he still feels like
they didn't talk about it now that I think about it, because they did talk about privacy and law enforcement, but did they not talk about Amazon owning all of those entryway points to people's houses? Because that would be interesting to me.
They didn't get too in depth there.
Well, it'd probably be a conflict of interest for him too. Maybe. I'm curious because I know at the time, a few years ago, I think Amazon bought Ring so that at least one aspect of the deal was so that they could have like remote entry into people's entryways, right, to drop off packages, or when they were starting a cleaning service on Amazon that would let your cleaning service into the house. I'm interested. I feel like a lot of those things died, but
yeah, I don't know. I've seen Ring like a couple times. I haven't seen it a ton, but yeah, I don't even know that.
I did one last night trying to get into somewhere and nothing happened. Jamie, what the heck, man?
He screwed it up.
I had to give him a call.
I mean, again, we're so excited about this. Like the takeaways are insane. If you, well, Bucky, you have a ton, but is there one thing that stood out from this podcast, like that you think about frequently?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the inventor entrepreneur. I think there are a lot of people that are inventors and not entrepreneurs that call themselves entrepreneurs. And I think it's important to listen to Jamie's story because they're completely different, at least in this aspect. And I've said it before, like I'd be the first to probably hand over the reins to a company I started because I enjoy so much of the creation, not the maintenance of a business. What about you?
I felt weird because I'm like, I asked this question. I'm like, I don't have my own answer. No, I think it's just this confirmation bias of no or very few people strike it big on their first project. Like you absolutely have to dabble. You have to tinker with all these different project ideas and you don't know. It's a lottery again. Just buy a bunch of tickets and we'll see what happens.
Right. Like you see the headline, Jamie on Shark Tank or Amazon buys Ring for $1 billion. You're like, oh my gosh, like go listen to his story. He did 100 things poorly, failed to get to that point. And that's the stuff that doesn't make the news, which is obviously like, it's not sensational. It's not glamorous, but like, that's what I tell people all the time. They're like, why aren't you blowing up? Why aren't you getting more views? Why aren't you blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I just have no expectation to. And like you said earlier, like I have no plan. I have like these big lofty, like long-term things. But when it comes to this week and next week, like I don't have any plans. And I think that's important.
Oh, I love it. If y'all listen to this podcast, which we always recommend, let us know. I don't know. You can't really comment on podcasts, but can you? That's the flaw in podcasts. You can't comment. That's why I love putting these on YouTube. We'll put the video of Henry and I on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
And we'll do like a reacts to this podcast. But leave a comment there or wherever. Email me.
I think if we're going to do that, we did about half summarizing, half reacting. I think if we're actually going to react to podcasts and stuff like that, it needs to be like 90% reaction and takes. And we got to have some rebuttals and disagreements. It's got to be a whole thing.
We think too similarly, though.
I know. This is the problem. I think like you and I think like Jamie. Jamie was on Guy Raz's show.
We got to listen to some who's like
this
anti? Who would be anti our beliefs with this stuff?
I don't know. I'm thinking like Jordan Belfort.
Oh yeah, I kind of don't like that slimy stuff. That's like a reacts video. But
yeah, like if we talk to a high frequency trader, I would get into it with that. Yeah.
All right, we'll end it here.
And our next guest, high frequency trader.
True. Oh, there's some stuff I want to talk about. Okay, so I have no idea what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Nice.
We're going to have another guest on this week who messaged us through Instagram that they want to be on. So again, this is Camila.
Oh yeah, sweet.
We're getting a lot of messages. So if you want to be on the podcast, we want to talk to you. So hit me up, Belky up.
If you message us and you don't say anything really stupid, you're going to be on the podcast.
And you might replace Henry as co-host.
This is also true. We've already experienced life without me for one day. I didn't even mention. I forgot to mention you at the beginning of the podcast. Oh, that's weird. They probably
it just went. There. It was so seamless cutting you out of the podcast. It felt right. So
I'm excited to listen. I know it's going to be weird.
Yeah. I learned a lot of lessons. So we'll see you tomorrow for whatever we cook up, and hopefully you listen to this podcast.
All right. See ya.